The story begins with Javier, a young Colombian boy, on a quest to find snakes in the perilous region of Las Arenas. His heart nearly stops when he unexpectedly encounters Diego, his partner in crime. Together, they had once made a living through small-time thefts and by conning tourists. However, it was Diego who came up with the idea to expand their operation, driven by the lucrative value of snakeskins. Javier now regrets agreeing to this dangerous venture, thinking it's madness to enter such a treacherous area. But Diego is focused on the potential profit, dismissing Javier's fears, assuring him that as long as they stay together, nothing bad will happen. Hello, it's Nacho here. Welcome back again. Suddenly, a noise breaks the silence, just a few steps from where they stand. Terrified, Javier abandons the mission, not realizing he'll have to navigate the woods alone to escape. As he moves forward, scanning his surroundings, danger lurks beneath him. His feet sink into the mud, and after taking a few steps, he stumbles and falls. Panicked, he lets out a scream as he sees what's left of the last was there. A week later, Josh and Sofia arrive in Bogota for a health conference. The two are doctors and were invited to give lectures at the event, but the trip could not have come in a worse time, as they have just separated. Josh tries to keep a good mood, chatting about the travel guides he studied and the research he did about the place. Sofia's situation is the opposite, as she was born in Colombia and is not very interested in the touristy side of the trip. Their contact is Marcos, an old friend of Josh who is also a doctor. He is waiting at the hotel and thanks them for accepting to participate at the last minute. In this conversation, we find out that Sofia stopped working to raise the children while Josh was establishing his career. Only now is she resuming her career, and that's why the conference is so important to her. Marcos informs that their lecture has been postponed to Friday, and she is relieved to have more time to prepare. At check-in, they discover that the reservation is for a double room. Josh explains that Marcos arranged this part and he still doesn't know about the divorce. Sofia immediately asks for a second room, but the receptionist informs her that the hotel is full because of the conference. She then asks for at least 2 separate beds. By the tone of the two, it is obvious that only Josh still has hopes of rekindling the relationship. Sofia insists that he tell Marcos that they are separated to avoid more confusion during their stay. In the room, she sees that there is only one double bed. Still in a cheerful tone, Josh says they can manage somehow, but Sofia responds curtly and says she needs space to work. He loses patience with her attitude and asks why she accepted the invitation if it is so unbearable to be near him. Tired of explaining that her career is also important, she just says she needs this opportunity. Marcos invited both of them to dinner at 8, and she warns that she will leave earlier so that Josh can talk to him. At the restaurant, Marcos and Josh reminisce about various past adventures. They both love to hike and explore exotic places. Marcos laughs upon discovering that his friend brought the same old backpack that was already in terrible condition back then. Then Josh says he is excited about the hikes he saw on the guide, and Marcos suggests a trail to an incredible waterfall, Cascada La Carrera. He extends the invitation to Sofia as well, but she wants to use the time to rehearse for her lecture. Marcos is surprised when she says she is heading back to the room and quickly says goodbye. He asks Josh if he was rude at any point, and the friend finally reveals that they are no longer a couple. In the morning, Sofia rethinks the idea of the hike since she has missed all those adventures while raising her children and doesn't know when the next opportunity will come. Returning to the room, she discovers that Marcos needed to sort out some issues related to the conference and postponed the outing. She decides to go anyway, and Josh insists on accompanying her, barely hiding his joy when she agrees. At the reception, they talk to the bellboy named Pedro about the way to the trail. The road he recommends is very long and takes several hours. Josh sees a possible shortcut on the map, but Pedro warns that this path crosses the Las Arenas region and that it is not a good idea. The area is full of venomous snakes, and even the locals don't venture there. The two don't seem very frightened by the description. Josh comments that he is an expert in hiking and Sofia has never heard of snakes being around. Pedro explains that the region's ecosystem has been undergoing changes and, moreover, the soil is not very stable. Josh laments losing so much time driving, but Sofia hates snakes and prefers not to take the risk. As the two walk away from the front desk, we see that Diego was sitting behind them. Pedro nods to the robber, identifying the tourist couple as perfect victims. Diego stands up shortly after. Unaware of the trap, the two take the longer road and then park at the trailhead. During the hike, Josh starts to pant much earlier than Sophia. His status as a hiking expert gets more undermined with each kilometer, while his ex-wife displays excellent physical fitness. At one point, she is so far ahead that he loses sight of her. Upon catching up, he thanks her for waiting, but she won't concede and says she only stopped because she had cramps. There is still a way to go until the waterfall, but the sky is getting dark, and thunder begins. Josh doesn't want to continue because it can be dangerous to stay there during the storm. He convinces Sophia to turn back, and the two quicken their pace toward the road. Upon reaching there, they are shocked to see Diego stealing their car and decide to hide behind a rock. Sophia begs Josh to stay quiet and not mess with the criminal, but he insists that the man could take the car, leaving them stranded. Josh thinks he must be just a petty thief taking advantage of the opportunity and will probably run away when caught in the act. While Sophia remains hidden, he goes to confront Diego and soon realizes he was completely wrong. Diego pulls out a gun as soon as he approaches and begins demanding money. He tells Josh to hand over the backpack and raise his hands, so the man complies. Unsatisfied, Diego also wants the wallet, but Josh didn't bring it. He insists on searching him to make sure it's true and then starts asking where the woman is. Josh swears she left and that he is alone, but the lie doesn't hold up. Diego repeatedly asks where she is and starts screaming at him, threatening to shoot. Trying to avoid a tragedy, Sophia steps out from behind the rock and hands over her backpack as well. When Diego bends down to grab it, Josh grabs a piece of wood and hits him in the head. This allows the victims to escape, but Diego doesn't even lose consciousness and immediately gets back up. He starts shooting in their direction and also enters the woods. Now the sound of thunder is much louder and closer. Sophia stops running when she sees a sign pointing to Las Arenas and suggests a risky plan. Since the priority right now is not getting shot, they could hide in that dangerous area and hope the bandit is afraid of snakes. The rain is already heavy, and they don't have much time to think clearly. Sophia is furious and says that Josh screwed everything up by wanting to play the hero. Hearing the shots get closer, she runs into Las Arenas as fast as she can. Still indecisive, Josh stays put, and because of that, Sophia is alone when she hits her head and passes out. She wakes up disoriented and starts calling for Josh, but no one responds. It is still raining heavily, and she doesn't even know which way the trail is anymore. Holding her head and leaning against trees, she wanders aimlessly. Suddenly, Sophia falls right into what seems to be a huge money pit and panics when she realizes she can't get out. The mud is so thick that she can barely move and ends up sinking even more. Josh is looking for her in another part of Las Arenas until he hears her screams and runs over. Seeing Sophia in danger, he rushes in so fast that he almost falls into the pit himself, but she warns him just in time. With a long branch, he tries to pull her out, but the branch doesn't hold and breaks in half. Very nervous, she begins to scream and thrash. He begs her not to do that, as it could make the situation worse. Soon it becomes clear that he is right because she starts sinking until she disappears completely, leaving only small bubbles on the surface. Josh becomes desperate and decides to jump into the pit to save her. With a lot of effort, he manages to pull her up until her head is out of the mud. She gasps for breath until she realizes what happened, shocked by Josh's heroism. Now he is also stuck and tells her that the best thing to do is stay still. He explains that this is not a puddle of mud, but a patch of quicksand. Meanwhile, Marcos is free from conference activities earlier than expected. No one responds when he knocks on the couple's door, which is a bit strange, because he had arranged to meet Josh in the afternoon. Returning to his own room, he sees that his friend left a message canceling the meeting. He alerts that he will accompany Sophia on the trail to the waterfall and that they will return late at night. The message ends with, "See you tomorrow." Marcos feels more at ease, unaware that his friends are almost immobilized and covered in quicksand. Josh is still calm and says he has never heard of anyone dying this way. The mud prevents movement precisely because it is heavier than the human body, which means they won't sink if they remain still. Surprised by this knowledge, Sophia asks how he knows so much about quicksand, and he says he read about it during his days of travel. In an ironic tone, she asks if the guide had instructions on how to get out of this, and he admits that the reading wasn't very useful. Then Sophia notices something she hadn't seen before. It is a large egg that must have fallen from its nest amid the chaos. Seeing that it isn't sinking, She thinks she can imitate it by stretching her body horizontally to distribute her weight. Josh says that won't work, but she asks him to at least try. The two begin pushing the mud with all their strength, but with no success. Trying to remove her shoes, Sophia notices something bulky just below them. She begins to get nervous and asks Josh for help bringing the thing to the surface. They both pull with all their might, and then we see Javier's face emerging from the mud. The horror of the discovery is even greater because the two have the medical knowledge to determine the circumstances of death, concluding that this man lost his life to hunger. This is a terrible reminder that no one ever comes through here, and the chances of them being found by chance are practically nil. Josh pulls the deceased's belongings from the mud, a backpack full of useful items and a gun. Sophia asks what he came to hunt here, and Josh says it's better not to know. Unable to cope with such morbid company, they push Javier back to the bottom. Sophia is shocked to see 2 bullets in the chamber and wonders why he didn't use one of them to end his own suffering. Josh's optimism cannot withstand such discussions, and he begins to change his mind about the plan to stay still. Nearby, there is a solid rock. They need to find a way to rope the rock and then climb out of the pit. Josh holds the backpack while Sophia cuts the fabric into strips. A few meters from the duo, we see that there is an anthill and intense activity. In Bogota, Marcos is working in the hotel lobby when Diego returns and goes to the front desk to talk to Pedro. Recognizing his friend's horrible backpack, Marcos goes to speak with him, wanting to know where he found the bag. Facing Diego's very suspicious reaction, he begins accusing him of having harmed his friends. The robber tries to run away, but Marcos takes him down, and the two fight until the security guards come to break it up. By this point, Josh and Sophia have finished assembling the makeshift rope. Due to their position, it is Sophia who will have to rope the rock. She is unsure, but Josh assures her she can do it. He is facing away from the rock and cannot turn around. Sophia throws the rope, and by the look on her face, he sees it didn't work. They are still 2 meters short of the loop reaching the rock. Going back to the original plan, Josh says that Marcos will send for help as soon as he notices their absence. Sophia is losing patience with this irrational positivity. The friend will only notice that they are missing the next day, and it's not that simple to organize a search in that immense forest. It is at this moment that the sound of helicopter blades fills them with hope. Sophia says it must be a sightseeing tour flying over the woods, which is a great advantage since the passengers are probably looking down. The two start shouting for help, but the vegetation is too dense and closed. Seeing the helicopter leaving, Sophia takes Javier's lighter and tries to set fire to the strips of the backpack, hoping the smoke will catch someone's attention. Josh says she is going crazy and won't let her burn their only chance. They start yelling at each other until they notice that the helicopter has disappeared. Sophia asks Josh if by any chance he brought water, and he says it was in the backpack that was stolen. She mentions that thirst will be a serious problem very soon. Josh is still saying that Marcos will come to help him and that the trio will laugh about this in the future, but the speech doesn't match his tears. Sophia doesn't get angry this time because she is starting to feel sorry for him. Then she suddenly starts screaming and says she is being bitten by something. Her back is covered in huge ants, and Josh cannot stretch his arm to help. He gives her a drink bottle, and Sophia gets rid of the ants with the alcohol, but the bites leave her back covered in blisters. Then she asks her ex-husband about that bottle, leading to a difficult conversation. Josh has had this kind of problem in the past and didn't want Sophia to know. He blames the stress of work and the divorce, swearing that he doesn't drink during his shift at the hospital. As the two talk about the problems in their marriage, a snake begins to approach without them noticing. Sophia says they could have used the rifle to get the helicopter's attention, and the two can't come to terms with their own incompetence. However, she thinks the gun can still be useful because they can extend the rope with the strap. She begins to explain how she will do this when she sees the snake right behind Josh. He panics when she warns him, finally realizing that waiting for rescue cannot work amid so many dangers. At his request, Sophia uses the gun and manages to hit the reptile, but not before Josh gets bitten. As the snake slithers away, injured, Sophia tries to help him as best as she can. Now the situation has changed completely because Josh needs to be taken to a hospital in 6 hours, at most. The poison is already beginning to take effect and will soon paralyze his organs. Meanwhile, Marcos and Diego have been detained because of the fight and are together in the same cell. The doctor offers money in exchange for information about his friends, but the guards have taken his suitcase, and Diego doesn't trust promises. The expensive watch on Marcos's wrist is the solution, despite being a keepsake from his father. Diego accepts the trade and says the couple is in Las Arenas without going into details about the robbery part. He explains that the region is named that way because there is a lot of quicksand. Marcos doesn't believe him at first and thinks the robber just wants to scare him. But then Diego explains the snakeskin trade and says he was there a week ago with his friend Javier, who hasn't been seen since. Marcos goes to the bars and starts calling for the guards, begging to be let out. By this point, the pain and fear have already drained Josh's optimism. Sofia tries to calm him down because the poison spreads as the victim's heart rate accelerates. He laughs at her efforts and says there's nothing more she can do for him. Then he asks why she changed her mind and decided to take the hike. Sofia feels sad at the insinuation that this is all her fault, and Josh apologizes for bringing it up. Then she notices that his neck is turning dark and remembers that one of the effects of the poison is the formation of clots. The risk of a stroke is very high, so Sofia decides to perform an emergency operation. Josh thinks that, in addition to being risky, the procedure won't help much. She responds that she made 2 vows in her life, one as a doctor and the other as a wife. Nothing will stop her from trying to save his life. Using the lighter to sterilize the knife, she manages to remove the clot. The pain is intense, and before losing consciousness, he tells Sofia he loves her. He wakes up an hour later, and she asks if he remembers what he said. He says yes, and confirms that it is still true. Moved, they begin to talk about their children. Sofia cries, saying she is scared and doesn't want them to be alone. Josh responds with shorter and shorter phrases, speaking very slowly, lacking the strength to even talk. She says she loves him too, and then feels she cannot give up like this. With renewed determination, she starts looking for the snake that bit Josh. He has difficulty understanding what she wants to do and only replies that the creature must be far away. But Sofia remembers the egg and knows that the mother must be nearby, protecting her offspring. When she sees the snake a few meters away, she starts throwing all of Javier's belongings in that direction. The animal finally gets irritated enough and slithers towards them. The plan is to use the snake as an extension of the rope, which won't work if it's alive. But as Sofia grabs the rifle, the target seems to have vanished, and she cannot see where it went. Since Josh is unconscious, he cannot warn her that the snake has circled around and is right behind her. The danger is too close when Sofia uses the knife as a mirror to see behind her. The fright is so great that she ends up wasting the last bullet. The snake bites her hand and begins to coil around her neck. Sofia starts to delirium, having visions of herself speaking to an audience. Grabbing the snake's head, she screams in rage, unable to do anything. Then Josh finally wakes up and manages to save Sofia just in time. She quickly ties the snake's body to the end of the rope, knowing she is racing against time as the poison takes effect. The first throw fails, but the second gets much closer. She finally manages to lasso the rock on her third attempt and then uses all her strength to pull her body out of the quicksand. The pain is already intense and the effort is enormous, but Josh smiles as he realizes she is really getting out of that cursed hole. When the rope snaps, she is already on solid ground and can hardly believe she succeeded. Staggering towards Josh, she reaches out her hand, but he has no strength left to hold it. He tells her that she needs to get out of there before the poison prevents her from walking. Sofia doesn't want to leave him behind, but she understands that it doesn't make sense to succumb now. As she starts to walk, her balance falters and her vision becomes increasingly blurry. Her face fills with horror when she feels her foot sinking into something sticky. About to be sucked down, she jumps back and grabs a branch to test the path ahead. When night falls, Sofia is almost paralyzed by the poison and can no longer continue. She falls to her knees and begins to delirium again until her face is illuminated by the ambulance lights and the sirens reach her ears. Incredulous, she hears Marcos calling her name. The paramedics take care of her while the search for Josh begins. She is almost losing hope of seeing him again when Marcos re-emerges from the forest with a team, carrying a stretcher. Fortunately, Josh was rescued, and he still cannot speak, but all his wife wants is a kiss. The film ends with Sofia happy, as thanks to the mutual effort of the couple, they will have a new chance to live together again. Thanks for watching Nacho's Movie Recaps. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for updates. Share your thoughts or requests in the comments below. See you next time.